Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Brandon Adams. This is a very special DawgNation presentation presented by Kroger of a major recruiting announcement set to take place in just a few moments at Upson Lee High School in Thomaston, Georgia, where one of the nation's top defensive tackles and one of the top players in the entire state of Georgia, five-star defensive tackle Trayvon Walker, gets ready to make his college decision tonight, and we're going to cover it for you live here on the DawgNation video channels. Thanks for watching us here on the DawgNation Facebook page, DawgNation YouTube page. Also, for those of you checking on the DawgNation Twitter feed, good evening and hello to you as well. You see live right there on your screen, Upson Lee High School, Trayvon Walker, the man of the hour, at the center of the table. Surrounding him are five hats, the five finalists for the decision we made there. You see Clemson and Auburn on the one side, Alabama in the center, South Carolina joining Georgia there on what I guess would be Trayvon Walker's left there as we go full screen in Upson Lee High School. Walker getting ready to make his announcement here in just a moment. He's got the hats there on the table. He's got a family gathered around him, and clearly a look on Trayvon Walker's face there that does speak to maybe a little bit of nerves. I don't think it's probably, if I had to guess, so much about nerves involving the college decision as it is maybe a little bit of nerves about the attention being paid to this. Obviously, some local TV interest in something like this. Websites like DawgNation covering this heavily. For those of you that listen and watch DawgNation daily every single day, you know that Trayvon Walker has been a huge topic of conversation on our program for weeks and weeks, months and months. I've called him maybe the most important uncommitted player that Georgia's pursuing here for its class of 2019. And even though Trayvon Walker's the kind of player on the field that attracts that kind of attention willingly, when you have to sit and bask in that moment with everyone wondering what he's going to do, what he's going to say, which of those five hats he's going to put on in just a little bit. Obviously, there's a little bit of energy in that room right now, and Trayvon Walker certainly appears to be feeling that. We're looking forward to giving you coverage of this event all night long. We'll hear Walker when he makes his announcement coming up in just a minute. We'll talk live later on to Jeff Sintel, whatever the Trayvon Walker announcement ends up being. Jeff Sintel will give us some coverage over all of that, of course, here on video. You know, that means I also want to take a lot of your questions and comments tonight. We'll look forward to getting your reaction to this, both in terms of your prediction of what's going to go down here, in my guess, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10, 15, maybe as much as 20 minutes, but within the next 10 to 15 minutes. I'm sort of curious to hear your prediction on all of this as DawgNation brings you this coverage presented by Kroger. And speaking of Kroger, by the way, they invite you right now to download the Kroger app. You can get $5 off your next purchase of $50 or more when you do at your local Atlanta Kroger stores. And, of course, a big thanks to Kroger for doing this for us tonight, giving you a chance to see what's going to happen here in just a moment. Five-star defensive tackle Trayvon Walker there at his high school, Upson Lee High School, makes his college choice from one of the five schools that you're paying attention to. Now, of course, for many of you, there's the question of, well, you know, exactly who is Trayvon Walker, and why is it that a guy like this is getting so much attention here before his senior year begins, well before the national signing day, whether you want to talk about early signing period in December or the traditional end of the recruiting cycle in February? Why is Trayvon Walker getting so much attention right here? Well, we kind of put together some sort of handy fast facts for you so you could get an idea and understand a little bit about what Trayvon Walker brings to the table. Here is why Trayvon Walker is getting as much attention as he is. In fact, let me show this to you on the screen right now. He's ranked as the nation's number 2 defensive tackle for the 24/7 Sports composite team ranking. We have him listed at 6'4", 240 pounds. The truth is, you know, since this summer has gone on, some of the work that he's done, he's actually probably put on a good bit of weight even since then. It is important to remember here that one of the finalists, South Carolina, there is a bit of a family tie to the Gamecocks for Trayvon Walker. He does have a couple of cousins that play for the Gamecocks. But if you look at a lot of those crystal ball predictions and things like that, you certainly see a lot of energy and momentum for Walker to Georgia. Of course, no current defensive tackle commits for UGA. But if you look at a way that a guy like Bill Norton from Memphis potentially projects for this Georgia class in 2019, there's a chance that Norton could slide inside maybe at a certain point in his career. And one of the interesting things about Trayvon Walker is, and we'll actually hear from Walker himself coming up on this in just a moment, is that, you know, there's some versatility here with how he may be used. The 3 technique, the guy that kind of lines up on the outside of the guard maybe. Also potentially a 5 technique, a guy that lines up on the outside shoulder of the tackle. That is an example of the versatility that Trayvon Walker could be sort of seeing if he were to come to Georgia, if he's a part of this Georgia 2019 class. there is some versatility here for him and how he could be used at UGA. We'll actually hear Walker in his own words on that coming up in just a moment. We'll also go back live here to Upson Lee High School in just a minute as well and check in on Trayvon Walker when he makes his official announcement. But as a way of setting up the decision that's going to go down here on this Kroger DawgNation recruiting special, I want to take another closer look here as you see Walker there at Upson Lee High School getting ready to go here, getting ready to make all this official coming up in just a moment. I want to take a look a little closer here at the 5 finalists represented by the hats that you see on the table there for Trayvon Walker. And, these particular 5 finalists, and we'll show you officially here who those finalists expect to be. We'll kind of dive in a little deeper as to why Walker may be considering the schools that he's considering. And in fact, here are the 5 finalists that we'll show you on your screen here. 2 schools from the state of Alabama, 2 schools from the state of South Carolina, and the home state school of Georgia. It is South Carolina and Clemson, Alabama and Auburn doing battle here with Georgia for the services of the 5-star defensive tackle Trayvon Walker, who's going to make his announcement here live on our screen here in just a moment. And, one of the things that, obviously, if you watch message boards, if you listen to conversations with Georgia fans, one of the things that you hear a lot of lately is a lot of excitement and enthusiasm that ultimately Trayvon Walker is going to choose UGA. But were he to choose another school besides Georgia, I think it's probably sort of fair to examine what the pull might be to some of those other programs. Take South Carolina, for instance. At one point in time, there had been some online chatter, some internet chatter, that maybe he was considering South Carolina a little more fully than maybe some Georgia fans credited. Recently, Trayvon Walker talked to DawgNation and our buddy Jeff Sintel, who's live with Walker at Upson Lee High School tonight. Recently, Trayvon Walker talked to Jeff Sintel about exactly what it was about South Carolina that he liked. In fact, let me show you here on your screen exactly what Walker said about South Carolina, what the potential pull was for him to the Gamecocks. For him, it's all about family. Walker says it's a brotherhood there. For example, when they go on a trip for their training, like to their boot camps, and the way they do it, it just shows they are a brotherhood. You're not relying on yourself, you rely on your teammates as well. That's Trayvon Walker talking about one of the things that he likes about South Carolina. Of course, we know that for Georgia and South Carolina, they went head-to-head over a defensive tackle for the class of 2018 and Rick Sandage. That battle ultimately won by Muschamp and the Gamecocks. But as I said, a lot of Georgia fans are confident that tonight's battle will be one in favor of the in-state school, thinking that Kirby Smart and Trey Scott get their coveted defensive tackle here, one of the highest-rated prospects Georgia's going to pursue at any position here for 2019. And certainly a major position of need for Georgia at that defensive line position. So that's what the pull potentially would be for South Carolina. But how about Auburn? You saw their hat on the table as a finalist here for Walker's recruitment. Admittedly, I think from Walker's standpoint, maybe Auburn has gotten in a little late on the recruitment here, trying to close the gap that maybe Georgia's enjoyed, or maybe at one point in time Clemson. Here is what Walker recently said about Auburn, and there's a little bit of a flair for the dramatic in the way that he describes this. He says about his feelings for Auburn, I'll put it like this, because it feels like when you get a girlfriend and then a lot of other girls want to come at you, you say your girl's a 10 and you have a lot of other girls talking to you that still look good. Your girl's still a 10 and those other girls look good too. But, you still have a girl who's been with you for a long time. You want to stay loyal to loyalty and not just that right now good-looking girl. So maybe that's what Auburn is in this case, the right now good-looking girl, a program trying to make up a lot of ground quickly, but maybe the reference there to loyalty is about the programs that have been recruiting Trayvon Walker longer, and obviously that would be Georgia or maybe a school like Clemson or South Carolina there. So kind of an interesting description that Trayvon Walker uses there to describe his relationship with Auburn. And then there's Clemson here, and if you listen to DawgNation Daily this morning, I kind of discussed this a bit more with Jeff Sintel. I find it kind of interesting that, if we were having this discussion a summer ago, the announcement that Trayvon Walker makes might have been very different than the one that he may end up making here this evening. In fact, if you want to go back to last summer, apparently for Trayvon Walker, there were some very strong feelings for one of the finalists in his discussion tonight. The Clemson Tigers. Here's what Trayvon recently told Jeff Sintel and DawgNation about just how close at one point in time things had gotten between he and Clemson. Here's some more from Trayvon Walker on that subject. He says, it was really close that first time I went to Clemson. I was feeling it, and I want to say it was at camp, and then I went back for the Auburn game. So then I was really thinking, dang, this is the move? And that was just the one school I really liked. I won't say I almost committed to them, but that was one school that really took the lead for me early. That's Trayvon Walker there talking about his affection for Clemson. So some reasons why Trayvon Walker might choose Clemson, some reasons why Trayvon Walker might choose Auburn, some reasons why Trayvon Walker might choose South Carolina. But maybe for many Georgia fans, though, the case for why Walker ultimately should choose Georgia, and at least in the minds of some predictions, why he might end up choosing Georgia here in just a couple of minutes, are probably sort of best explained in Trayvon Walker's own words. In fact, here is a conversation that Jeff Sintel, our buddy, our DawgNation recruiting insider, recently had with Trayvon Walker. Here on this DawgNation recruiting special, no better way to set the stage for Walker's upcoming announcement than hearing the thought process he was going through just a few weeks ago. Take a look at this.
Trayvon, which head coach plays the biggest role in your recruiting right now?
Right now, that stays in contact, Coach Smart.
Really?
Yeah, Coach Smart. He's just like, most of the time when he was on the road, he made sure he get stopped to see me. And he gets on the phone with me just about every week. You know, some head coach you really can't get that from, but he finds time to make for me. So,
has he ever said anything like he's prone to do, like I'm not going to let you leave the state, or I'm going to recruit you as hard as I can?
He says he's going to recruit me as hard as he can, but he says he wants me to enjoy the recruiting process while I can.
What do you think your best fit is Saturdays? Is it a little bit of 3, a little bit of 5, more on the edge? What do you think?
It depends on the Georgia scheme. I know they talk a lot about moving me into the 3 a little bit, but I mean, it really wouldn't matter. I'm just trying to get on the field. I like everything.
So good stuff there, Trayvon Walker speaking to Jeff Sintel really just a couple of weeks ago, and now we check in live at Upson Lee High School, where family, friends gather around Trayvon Walker as he gets ready to make his college choice here live tonight on this DawgNation recruiting special presented by Kroger. Speaking of Kroger, we got school starting there at Upson Lee and at your child's school here very soon as well, and I want you to remember Kroger is your back-to-school supply central. You can stop by your local Atlanta Kroger and save on supplies from notebooks to glue to pens, pencils, everything in between. It's all there for you at your Atlanta area Kroger. It's good to have you with us this evening. My name is Brandon Adams. We're all watching in very closely on what the 5-star defensive tackle Trayvon Walker gets ready to do here in just a couple of moments. In fact, in just a couple of minutes, I'm actually going to stop talking, and we'll turn our attention to Walker, the man of the hour. Let him speak, and he'll tell the world where he plans to play his college football starting in 2019. Before that, though, let me dive in a little more deeply here just for a moment on why this is such an important recruitment for Georgia. And I think that for fans that follow the program closely, they're well aware of the situation along the defensive line. Lack of depth right now, Kirby Smart's expressed that as a concern. But in future years, including 2019, starting in what would be Walker's freshman season where you choose UGA, it's maybe more of a concern. In fact, let me show you the current Georgia situation when it comes to a defensive lineman here. And I want you to notice something in particular about this group. As we show this on the screen, take a look at all these seniors. You've got Jonathan Ledbetter. You've got Daquan Hawkins-Muckle, who's a senior. Then you've got juniors like Justin Young and Mikhail Carter, Julian Rochester, Michael Barnett, also a junior. Tyler Clark, a junior, could be an early entrant in the NFL draft. Then you get into a Malik Herring and Devontae Wyatt as sophomores. There is a conceivable fact that we know that Ledbetter and Hawkins-Muckle are gone for next season, but guys like Julian Rochester, Tyler Clark, they could potentially be facing NFL decisions. And all of a sudden, the depth at Georgia along the defensive line becomes an even bigger issue, and one of the reasons why a guy like Trayvon Walker could be looked upon early, no matter which of these schools that he chooses. Walker's talked a lot before about early playing time and an understanding of the depth chart being crucial for him as he makes his choice, and clearly he sees an opportunity at Georgia because of guys that either are guaranteed to be departing from the program or might be departing from the program that opens the door for him. Plus, when you look here, and I'm going to show you this for a moment, what Georgia's done with some of its recent signing classes, you see an example of the fact that at least recently, Georgia hasn't really nailed down Walker's position as well as it's done at some of the other positions. In fact, let me show you the current defensive line commits for the class of 2019 and the signees for 2017-2018. If you go back to 2 recruiting cycles ago, you had Malik Herring, who may end up being a very good player, Devontae Wyatt, who really gets reclassified as a 2018 signee, Jordan Davis, who's going to be an incoming freshman in Georgia this season for that class of 2018, Tramel Walthour, who's going to go a junior college route here. And then for 2019, Bill Norton and Zion Logue are both commits right now. So this is a position that Georgia has needed a lot more success with on the recruiting trail. It's put a bit of a spotlight maybe on what Walker's position coach at Georgia would ultimately be if he were to choose UGA Trey Scott. It's one of the reasons why so many Georgia fans are leaned in so closely on this tonight and getting ready for the big announcement as it gets ready to be made. We're live here as a part of DawgNation's coverage of this tonight. My name is Brandon Adams. Jeff Sintel is at Upson Lee High School. That's where Trayvon Walker's at as well. Coming up in just a moment, he will speak and he will do it here live. In fact, we'll check in right now on Walker as he gets ready to make his choice. And you see the family gathered around there on the table. Once again, you see those 5 finalists on the table there as well. Clemson and Auburn. Alabama's in the center. South Carolina and Georgia would be on his left side there. So for those of you that follow the hat science there, you can kind of figure out what's going on in that regard. We're going to get ready to go live and talk about this in just a moment. Just as soon as we get the thumbs up that Walker's getting ready to talk, we'll get ready to do that. While we're waiting on that, we'll take some of your comments here, including Brian Bloomfield, who says, imagine if we had Aubrey Solomon and Derek Brown, Rashad Cheney, leaving out a bunch of other homegrown defensive linemen. And obviously there is a little bit of context and subplot backstory to this. That there were, you mentioned Derek Brown, the class of 2016, a guy in a high-profile recruitment that chose Auburn over Georgia. A high-profile recruitment for the class of 2017, Aubrey Solomon from Lee County, the same school that produced 2018 signing Otis Reese. Aubrey Solomon chose Michigan over Georgia. So there's no doubt there have been some high-profile misses for Georgia at its defensive line position for the last couple of recruiting cycles, which is one of the reasons why Georgia fans looked at Trayvon Walker, the guy that you see there on your screen, and they said, we don't want to see this guy go. We want to make this guy the top priority. And Walker himself, and I played this audio for you on DawgNation Daily. You heard Walker himself say this a moment ago that he felt like Kirby Smart's made him a priority. The text messages, the visits there to Upson Lee High School. This is something that Kirby Smart has done a good job to kind of dive in on and get going. And in just a moment, we'll find out exactly what Trayvon Walker is going to do for his announcement. Gary and Christian Gulisano says, BA, it's a Nike Bama hat and Adidas background. So no Bama there. I think you may be right about that, Gary and Christian, that you got the Adidas banner, I think, connected to Upson Lee here. Obviously, Bama is a Nike school, and you've got Clemson on the far right, Georgia on the far left. Many of you know that I'm sort of fascinated by the hat science world, although I'm probably not always the best at picking up on all these clues. It looks like the Georgia hat's got a little bit of a bend to it, whereas the best I can tell, the Alabama hat's laying completely flat here. Other than that, it's sort of hard to tell too many differences in the hat when it comes to this. Stephen John Spivey talking about the interest that Walker's announcement showing here. Yeah, listen, I think one of the things you also see here is an incredible hunger for the start of the football season here. The fact that so many people are looking at this announcement as sort of a way of kind of, Jeff Sentell has called it the appetizer, the main course, as we kind of kick off and get going here. Do we want to check in on Upson Lee here and hear some of the sights and sounds there to kind of hear how things are going? We've got to be only a minute or so away here from this announcement. We'll kind of check in on some of the sights and sounds. I may talk over a little bit of this here, but certainly we want to be able to get the announcement from Trayvon Walker when he gets ready to make that. And I commented off the top of our broadcast.
Go live. 2 minutes.
Maybe a little bit of nervousness in the face. We're 2 minutes away, I'm being told. So stick with us here. 2 minutes away from this announcement going down. Maybe a little bit of nervousness in the face of Trayvon Walker. That, for me, though, is maybe just emblematic of the fact that he's being watched so closely right now. Thousands of people watching our broadcast. No telling how many people gathered there at the auditorium at Upson Lee High School. That's a lot of attention for one young man to be getting. Stuart Kitchen says that he doesn't think the South Carolina hat's going to be put on. He says that hat looks like it came from a gas station. Yeah, I guess in some ways the Georgia hat and the Alabama hat are the most similar hats here. Now, I don't think there's a whole lot of chatter about Walker even going to Alabama, but there is something sort of a little different about that Georgia hat and compared to the sort of busy look on the South Carolina hat, the busy look on the Auburn hat, the busy look on the Clemson hat. Looks like Walker may be gone. We want to check in and go to hop in on. Let's hear a little bit of Trayvon Walker. If it gets quiet, I'll start talking. Here are the sounds from Upson Lee High School here. All right, so we're about a minute away here from what's going to go on with Trayvon Walker, and we'll give that to you here coming up. We're live here as part of our DawgNation recruiting special presented by Kroger. Good to have you with us as Trayvon Walker gets ready to go and make his decision here tonight. Melinda Moe says, please, please, please choose UGA, and that's certainly, I think, reflective of how a lot of Georgia fans feel. Rocco Rock says the bend on the UGA hat tells you a lot. Yeah, and I kind of mentioned that a moment ago as well, that if you want to follow the hat science rule here, the Georgia hat is a little more different than the others, than that it looks like it actually has been worn. That Alabama hat looks like it's going back to whatever sporting goods store it came from here. Somebody already said that the South Carolina hat's a little too busy. The Auburn hat may be a little bit too busy. That doesn't look like something that anyone would actually wear. There's kind of the overlap with the Clemson logo here. So a lot of people sort of weighing in on the same thing here. But we'll find out from Walker in his own words here coming up in just a moment. Dustin McDaniel says it's the most important recruit of the class. And, Dustin, I agree with you in many ways. And obviously you can make a case that some of the committed players like Jaden Hazelwood and Nolan Smith are just as important, maybe more important. But in terms of the uncommitted players here for the Georgia program, I don't know that anyone meets a need for Georgia, is a more impressive-looking specimen than what Trayvon Walker here is. This is a guy that's getting a lot of attention justifiably. There is no doubt about that. Ryan Duquesne says, why do we waste time speculating on something that we're about to find out? I think the thing here, though, is we just can't help it. I'm just sort of fascinated by the whole process here. I sort of like the speculation as much as I like anything else. I like playing along and trying to figure a lot of this kind of stuff out with all of you. So I'm just as much into this as any of y'all are. Josh Atwater says Clemson and South Carolina hat were bought at the same time.
First of all, I would like to thank God.
I sort of thought the same thing, too. They're both kind of like, let's go live here to Upson Lee. Let's see Trayvon Walker.
Motivated me to be the person I am. Thank my teammates, coaches, family members in my community for sticking behind me through the whole process. With that being said, I'll be taking my talent.
All right, so there you have the announcement. Trayvon Walker has done it. He has chosen the University of Georgia. At the assembly there, you heard the cheers and the roars go up as Walker picks UGA. So huge news there as Trayvon Walker has chosen the University of Georgia. And the Dogs add a major piece to its 2019 class with the 5-star defensive tackle Trayvon Walker. Hello, everybody. My name is Brandon Adams. This is a special DawgNation recruiting look at the newest edition of Georgia's 2019 class. It's brought to you by Kroger as Georgia adds a name that around here and on DawgNation Daily we have been talking about a lot. The 5-star defensive tackle, Trayvon Walker, one of the top players in the state of Georgia, the nation's number 2 defensive tackle for the entire 2019 class. Nationwide, he has chosen UGA in a ceremony you just had a chance to see right there. Huge news, big-time announcement going down as Walker chooses the University of Georgia. We'll go back live to Upson Lee. We'll hear from Jeff Sintel on the telephone here in just a moment. Jeff will give us his thoughts on that. We hope to hear from Trayvon Walker himself. We'll give many of you a chance to sort of weigh in on this here as Georgia has added a major name for its 2019 class and a short, sweet, to the point, get to directly to business announcement there from Trayvon Walker. The hat goes on, and he goes rolling off here, and it is a big-time day here for the Dogs as hat science remains undefeated here. As many of the Georgia fans pointed out, the bend in the bill for the Georgia hat was the one he wanted to put on. He reaches to his left. He grabs it. And now Trayvon Walker will become a part of Georgia history here, adding to what is just an unprecedented haul of 5-star recruits over the last 3 recruiting cycles, the one ongoing here for 2019, what's gone on in 2017 and obviously 2018. Kirby Smart racking up on the recruiting trail, and another example of that here. As we continue our coverage, let me dive in and get some more of your comments on this, and we'll hear exactly what Georgia fans have to say about this tonight. It's a big get for Georgia here. Jennifer Elizabeth gives you the woof, woof, woof. A lot of Georgia fans agree with that. Shonda White says, welcome to DawgNation. Harrell Tiz Thomas says, Trey Scott for the win. And Harrell's point here, I think, is a really important one to bring up. Trey Scott is the Georgia defensive line coach. Scott's a guy that's received his share of criticism. Scott is a guy that has, some Georgia fans, and I showed you the graphic a moment ago of what Georgia had done on its defensive line, only bringing in Malik Herring and Devontae White for the class of 2017. For many Georgia fans, that wasn't enough. Only bringing in Tramel Walthour and Jordan Davis for the class of 2018. For many Georgia fans, that wasn't enough. But so far for 2019, the results start to speak for themselves. Bill Norton from Memphis is a player that Georgia fans, I think they have high hopes for. Trayvon Walker, who makes his announcement tonight, is a prospect that Georgia fans rightly are through the roof about. Zion Logue is a name that many of us are still learning to get acquainted with. But the Walker results here, clearly a trophy on the wall here for Trey Scott, who I'm sure no doubt will be tweeting out in just a moment his own brand of celebration. My guess is we'll hear a lot from Kirby Smart here as well. You see there back at Upson Lee High School, you saw Trayvon Walker there sitting at the table, sort of basking in the glow of his special moment. Really good stuff there, and we'll keep talking about your comments on this all night long, or not all night long, but at least for a good while longer. Brian Nelly says it's a huge get for our defense. Let's get it, dogs. And I think there's no doubt a lot of Georgia fans are going to agree with that. Ryan Wilbank says, hell yeah, we got him. But let's be honest, Kirby got this recruit, not Trey Scott. You know, I think that, Trey Scott is a guy that's going to have to get some of the credit for this, but pretty clearly, as Trayvon Walker spoke about earlier, Kirby Smart was a guy that did play an instrumental role in what goes on here. Walker, in his own words, said it was Kirby who texted him. It was Kirby who, took some visits there to Upson Lee High School. But Trey Scott's going to share some of the credit for this here as well. Nicole House talking about the fact that Georgia's going to be jumping way up in the rankings. Yeah, Georgia adding another 5-star prospect. And the important thing to remember about a lot of these rankings for Georgia, some of the schools ranked ahead of Georgia are going to have a higher number of total commitments. But the average UGA commit right now is looking pretty good, as Zion Logue is the only 3-star member of that class currently. Bob told me how to pronounce his name the other day. Now I've forgotten. Fakay, I think it is. He says, you won't be disappointed, Trayvon. You made the right choice. And no doubt a lot of Georgia fans will agree with that here as well. Alan Vrabanchik says, I had no doubts that he would choose the Dogs. Alan, I think a lot of Georgia fans are feeling pretty good about that here as well. We've certainly heard that. Matt Rukavina says this should put us into a top 5 class. I think for right now that's true. I also think even beyond that, it's true. I see no reason why Georgia can't make another strong push towards another top 3 level class, top 2, compete with Alabama for number 1. I think it's all on the table here, for Georgia as the 2019 cycle rolls on. The one advantage that Alabama might end up having is the fact that I believe it's just going to be available to sign a higher number of people. Obviously, there's a huge weight given to signing a larger class, but the average signee for Georgia will end up looking pretty good here. Shane Bentley says about Trayvon Walker's commitment, this type of recruiting is why Bama's doing the ESPN special. Georgia's taking over recruiting from Alabama. And I agree with Shane on that. And if you're not aware of what Shane's talking about, we spoke about this briefly on DawgNation Daily this morning, that Alabama and Nick Saban, who's sort of been legendarily averse to a lot of media coverage, has now teamed up with ESPN for what I guess is going to end up being like a 4-part recruiting special, where they're going to, or not recruiting special, it's going to have the benefit, Saban, I think, hopes of recruiting, but it's really more about sort of an all-access pass into Alabama football here, and I agree with the commenter Shane. I'm not quite so sure that Alabama's opening its doors to ESPN unless it really felt the pressure from Georgia. And Trayvon Walker, I believe, another huge example of why Georgia does truly really push Alabama here, and the Crimson Tide start to really, really feel a strong push and a lot of pressure here from UGA on the recruiting trail. Eric Smith on YouTube showing his satisfaction, happiness with all of this. DSGB27 says, we need to Trayvon Walker back. DSGB, I totally agree with you on that, and I think we can all, for those of us who like UGA anyway, can justifiably celebrate the outcome here. Travis Nunnally says July's already been good to DawgNation. Obviously a reference there to the Demetrius Robertson commitment, the former 5-star receiver, who you'll also add into that crop of 5 stars and future 5 stars collected by Kirby Smart here. It has been a very good month, no doubt about that. Crow King 123 says, BA, what other defensive tackle should we look out for now? Trayvon is huge, but we need at least 2 or 3 more. And obviously Georgia's continuing to pursue that. We talked about that with Jeff Sentell a little bit today. The other defensive lineman from Tennessee that Jeff has written about there at DawgNation.com. I also think you can start to look to see a lot of movement with this 2020 class, where in the state of Georgia, the defensive line position is a lot deeper than it probably is for 2017. And how good does that look, by the way? The Georgia hat on Trayvon Walker, the family and friends there now. That is a face that's all about business, but that Georgia G has never looked better than it does right there on Trayvon Walker. You see it on your screen. Great job by our team on the scene there in Upson Lee to get this shot for you of Trayvon Walker looking the part of a 5-star defensive lineman here. A guy that, as we said before, has the potential to play inside, kind of that 3 technique, a guy that might line up on the outside shoulder of the guard there all the way up to the 5 technique, sort of like what I think of as sort of a traditional defensive end, lining up on the outside shoulder of the tackle. This guy that's got the speed to do one, maybe the power to do the other. It's one of the reasons why Georgia was as attracted to Walker as they were, And you see him right there now and enjoying all of this, looking to maybe take some questions from the media. We hope to get Walker on our screen here live for you in just a moment, and we'll certainly talk to Jeff Sintel about all of this here as well. John Pendergrass on YouTube says, we're not done yet, just wait. And I think that John is speaking the truth there. Jermaine Dunbar Trucking Company says the dogs are smiling in heaven. I think they're smiling all over everywhere tonight. John, no doubt about that. Marcus Thomas says that's much needed, but we need more in this class. And Marcus, I think Kirby Smart is on that case pretty good right now. Keith Walker says, I believe the Trayvon Walker commit will start the commit train rolling here. He mentions Andrew Booth, which is a name that I've been very interested in, although Booth, the defensive back from Archer High School, has been one of those guys that just doesn't seem like that connection with George has truly been there. DJ Daniels, though, another defensive back, the junior college prospect, who may very well be there on his way to a Georgia. It seems like there's been some good movement there. Keith also mentions Trey Sanders, and that crop of running backs. We keep talking about the quartet of the two kids from Louisiana, John Emery and Ty Davis, the two kids from IMG, Noah Kane and Trey Sanders. Jeff Sintel, who we lean on for a lot of this stuff around DawgNation, has been steadfast in his belief that Georgia gets one of those four running backs. Is it more likely to be Sanders than Noah Kane? Is it more likely to be Davis or Emery? I think that differing tastes have differing opinions there. But Jeff continues to believe that Georgia's got a big running back coming here at some point in time. Eric Smith says, thanks for the coverage. Appreciate that. We're going to go live and hear a little bit. Okay, yeah, we're watching Trayvon Walker here a little bit. And in fact, let's take a look at a little bit of Walker's high school film here to give you an idea of what he brings to the table as a player there. You'll see him spot shadowed in most of these highlights. So while I take some comments here, y'all can watch a little bit of Trayvon Walker, and you can do some evaluation yourself about what Walker brings to the table as a prospect. Great work by our team here in the building here today to bring you all this coverage here. Trayvon Walker looking like a really good-looking prospect here. A lot to be excited about both from the size and speed standpoint. David Hill, back to the Georgia class, what it looks like for 2019, says, not sure we're going to get a number one class this year only because we won't have as many commits, but we'll have a number one average per player ranking. And for me, David, speaking from the perspective of a fan, that's fine for me. If Alabama signs more commits, ends up, or I should say signs more prospects, ends up with the number one ranking. But, I think we can all look at some of the Alabama guys, priorities for them, not necessarily priority for Georgia. I won't get into the specific names, but we can think of some examples of that where Georgia has just sort of evaluated and prioritized recruits in a slightly different way than what Alabama has done here. So the average recruit ranking for UJ is going to end up looking pretty good here in the days of Georgia having to settle for players that Alabama passed on or slow played. I think those days are long since gone when it comes to things like that. Brian Kephart says, I'm sure that BA likes the suplex power that Trayvon Walker just showed. Yeah, I was watching some of these highlights earlier today. Brian's referencing the fact that I'm a pretty big pro wrestling fan, grew up that way anyway, and you do in one of these highlights here see Walker really kind of put together almost like a Brock Lesnar style human suplex machine move. So really good stuff. Tram Dickerson L says, hey, ask Jeff who signs next or who commits next. That's a great question, Tram. We'll look forward to asking that to Jeff here in just a moment. Terry Dorman, says, let me get Terry's comment here. He says, understand five-star nation, but college and high school a little different. Hope it all works out. And Terry brings up a point that's fair here. Obviously, not every five-star player goes on to the next level and pans out the way that we all think they're going to. But around here, the motto that I always use for the shows that I do, and I think many of you are in agreement with me on this, the way that you sort of deal with the fact that not every five-star pans out is you bring in as many as you can. You stockpile guys at multiple positions. And that's why, a moment ago somebody said, hey, you want Trayvon Walker, but you want more defensive linemen here as well. That's what you want to do. You want to collect as many five-stars as you can. Obviously, when you see the film from Trayvon Walker, there's a lot to like there. Nothing's a given at the college level. But what's great about Kirby Smart is he doesn't stop just because he got Trayvon Walker. He's looking at other defensive linemen. He's looking at junior college prospects. He's looking at 2020 kids. He's looking at every avenue to make this roster as good as it can be. Georgia, under Kirby Smart, to his credit, is not going to put his eggs in any one player's basket. I think that's really smart. Kevin Michael Grammer says, I'm going to take the number 2 class if it comes with a higher overall average per recruit. I think that's a really good point from Kevin there in that regard. And we'll find out what Jeff Sintel says about all this in just a moment. We hope to hear from Trayvon Walker himself here as well. Santiago DR says, Saban is scared, so he has to think of ways to be relevant by dealing with ESPN. Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be a little bit of a theme for tonight, is there's no doubt. Saban's been in Alabama since 2007, and he built a premier program in Alabama probably starting in 2008. By 2009, he was national champion. In that span of time from 2009, as you see, a really good shot there of Trayvon Walker talking to some media and some reporters. We'll catch up with Walker ourselves here coming up in just a moment. But to just finish the point that I was making there, since Saban really got Alabama rolling in 2009, there is no program in the SEC, LSU included, that has put more pressure on Alabama than what Georgia has with the way it's recruited here over the last two full recruiting cycles and the ongoing 2019 cycle. And yes, Alabama can claim a scoreboard in the national championship game, and Georgia fans will give credit where credit's due on that. But Alabama feels Georgia coming on the recruiting trail. There is no doubt about that. All right, before we hear from some of the folks there at Upson Lee, let me take a few more of your comments. Jackson Wright says Georgia's lost a lot of Georgia boys over the years, and that has happened. In-state guys like Trayvon Walker have gone other places, and you heard Walker in his own words, quoted by Jeff Sintel at DawgNation, saying that as of last summer, even Walker himself was thinking about going out of state. You respect the work that a program like Clemson does coming in, establishing that good relationship. Walker sees a Clemson program that has had great success with defensive linemen. Deshaun Watson's past at Clemson gets a lot of attention, but the position group they've been the best at may actually be along the defensive line, including what they expect to put together here for 2018. The defensive coordinator, Brent Venables, has done a great job with that group. So it's understandable why Walker would be interested in Clemson. It's really a credit to Georgia. They said, you know what? No more losing top-flight defensive tackles. Derek Brown to Auburn, Aubrey Solomon to Michigan, no more of that. It's time to close the border here, and it's time to keep a guy like this in-state. And, let's face it here, there is something special about getting a chance to put the uniform on for your in-state school. Not every player is going to choose to do it. Some guys want to get away from home. But for the ones that want to be at home, the ones that want to wear that red and black, trust me, I'm on the sidelines before the games on Saturdays. I hear the shouts from the hometown crowd. I love seeing those guys and gals, families trying to reach across those hedges, give that handshake and that pat on the shoulder pads. Georgia's a pretty special place to be when you're doing it for the home state school, and that's exactly what Trayvon Walker is going to get a chance to do, and I think that's pretty incredible there. All right, so we're going to hear from Walker in just a moment. We're going to hear a lot more from you. We'll hear from Jeff Sintel here as well. While I'm doing all of this, let me remind you, all of this is brought to you tonight, our DawgNation recruiting special by Kroger. And if you like more of this at DawgNation, you want to make sure you thank your friends at Kroger for it. And by the way, it's back to school time. Keep thinking about Kroger, especially when it comes to those back to school vaccinations. Have you had them yet? Well, your local Atlanta Kroger pharmacies have got you covered. You can go to Kroger.com/wellnessyourway. That's Kroger.com/wellnessyourway for more information on that. Robert Nelson says, look for a couple of big recruits to commit this weekend at the locker room reveal, and then he gives you the eyeball emoji. And for those of you that are not aware of what Robert's talking about, there is the big reveal this weekend. There's like a camp on Friday and the event itself on Saturday where Georgia's going to show off its brand new West End Zone facility to recruits. I think Walker himself is actually expected to be there. It's the brand new locker room. It's also the recruiting. And I almost think of the recruiting facility as being like that sort of hospitality venue that the recruits go to while the game is going on. Georgia hasn't really had anything, state-of-the-art like that in the past. But it's going to be unveiled here for this season. It's going to be an awesome addition to Georgia's recruiting efforts. And the best of the best recruits in the entire nation, the entire South, are going to get a chance to see that on Saturday. And I understand where the commenter's coming from here is, don't be surprised if you don't get a couple other reverberations kind of bubble up because of that. Really well said there, no doubt. Miriam Martin Corbin, a great commenter, says, I squealed so loud I scared my doggies. Well, Miriam, I'm glad to know you're happy about the news there for Trayvon Walker. Daniel Beard gives us a What a Rush reference. I would use my Road Warrior Hog voice, but I'm not quite sure I'd pull that off. But Daniel, great job on that. Cat Story Lang says, it's not only quantity, but it's also quality. And that's an important thing to remember here is that the quality of recruits that Georgia's bringing in, the per recruit average, for those of you that pay attention to that numeric score at 24/7 Sports and things like that, has it ever been higher? Is there really any program recruiting a higher sort of composite level of talent than what Georgia's doing right now? All that's really well said. Robert Barnes says, I don't really care where we end up in the ratings as long as we get what we need and want. Go Dogs. Yeah, that's really, really true. And right now, Georgia's getting a lot of what it wants at the moment. Alan Frazier says, I know Alabama's not winning all those titles with 2 and 3 stars. When you get those kids on campus, you have to coach them up. You do, and that's what we're going to see happen next. And obviously, I think one of the things that Georgia sees from Trayvon Walker is a chance to sort of coach him up in versatility. And Walker said, you know what, use me inside, use me outside, use me however you want. I think that maybe, and listen, there are plenty of y'all who know more about X's and O's than I do, but I think that maybe one of the suggestions for how Walker might be used this season is a little bit like Jonathan Ledbetter's going to be used. Now, is Walker a bit more of a true inside player than Ledbetter? He might be, but you're going to see Ledbetter slide around a lot. In fact, Chip Towers actually talked about that a little bit on Monday when he was on DawgNation Daily, that Ledbetter is one of these guys that has that same level of versatility. I don't think that Walker's ever going to play like a true outside linebacker position. Sometimes Ledbetter might, but Ledbetter might also try to go in and give you a speed advantage on the inside as well. I guess in the modern version of football, you see a lot of that anyway. You see, cross-trained defensive backs, safeties who play like cornerbacks. You see linebackers who, like Reggie Ragland comes to mind in Alabama, guys who play both inside and outside. You see a lot of cross-training with football players, and I think that in terms of coaching up this 5-star, I think that's one of the ways in which Georgia can look to a coach up here by really trying to maximize the versatility that he brings to the table. For those of you that are just joining us, let me sort of tell you who I am, what we're doing here, kind of what's going to happen next. This is DawgNation coverage presented by Kroger of a major announcement. It's 5-star defensive tackle, the nation's number 2 defensive tackle, and one of the top players in the entire state of Georgia, Trayvon Walker, has chosen UGA in an announcement you saw live right here on the DawgNation video channels from his high school there at Upson Lee High School in Thomaston, Georgia. This is a major get for the Bulldogs. We're talking to you about that. In a moment, we're going to go back to Upson Lee. We hope to hear from Trayvon Walker. We hope to hear from Jeff Sintel. So we've got a lot more action coming to you from Upson Lee here in just a moment. And you can, of course, check out some of the highlights there of Walker, one of the things that made him a 5-star prospect. Of course, this footage from his junior season at Upson Lee High School. And Walker, more than just a football player. Walker, at this time, he's probably playing football somewhere in the neighborhood of 240 pounds. If you put him on the scales today, he's probably more like 275, if I'm guessing. I haven't weighed him, but based on some of the stuff that I've heard from some of the Nike camps and things like that, he's put on weight, as you might imagine. Walker's also a basketball player. He led Upson Lee to a state championship. I believe they were also undefeated. Upson Lee's got quite a run going there in basketball. He does some field events, so he's really a 3-sport star there at Upson Lee. And now he's about to be a big star, potentially at the defensive line for the University of Georgia. I know at one point in time in the past, Walker was contemplating not being an early enrollee, about being a summer enrollee for 2019. Obviously, a lot of time to go before you get there, but we have a chance to talk to Jeff about this. That's one of the things we will discuss. Is that plan still on, or is he reevaluating the notion that he might be an early enrollee? That'll be a fun conversation to have with Jeff here in just a little bit. We'll be back to Upson Lee here in just a moment. In fact, we are okay. Kirby Smart's waiting here. Good job there by Michael Carvel in the room with me here. Just about 15 minutes ago, Kirby Smart has tweeted out the Go Dogs. And this has become one of those fun traditions in college football where obviously the NCAA rules prohibit Kirby Smart from talking about a prospective student athlete. He's not allowed to mention Trayvon Walker by name, but Kirby, like all coaches, has the little subtle tweet that seems to go out right about the right time there. And so Kirby Smart gives you the Go Dogs. Really good stuff there, and a great job getting the Kirby tweet on the screen here, too. Rodney Bryant asking what we were just talking about Walker enrolling early. Rodney, the last I had heard on that is that Trayvon Walker, and this is going back like months ago. This is like ancient news by now. But at one point in time, Rodney, I know that Walker was contemplating not being an early enrollee, but we'll let Jeff correct the record on this for us because a lot of times that kind of stuff changes. Ronald Clark Jr. says, the rich keep getting richer. Welcome to the family. And a lot of Georgia fans are hoping that that added wealth keeps coming up. Hayes Calloway checking on the program. Hayes, we appreciate that. Georgia boy Middleton reminding us that Trayvon Walker's recruitment, similar to Trent Thompson, who back for the class of 2015, was the number 1 recruit in the entire country. So that's a big level of success that UJ enjoyed with that player. And obviously Thompson went on to do good things in the Georgia uniform. And now Trayvon Walker is going to try to do the same thing. In many ways, it's kind of a similar player. But an exciting night for UGA as Trayvon Walker is in the fold here. Let me get some more comments. Elizabeth Cunningham says, Kirby's doing a great job. So happy for Trayvon and the Dog Nation. Welcome, Trayvon. We need you. Elizabeth, I agree with you on all fronts there. Kirby is doing a great job, and Georgia does truly need him. Echoing that is Alexander Bloom, who says, it's a huge commitment tonight. By the way, you see Jeff Sintel doing work, getting in on Trayvon Walker and getting that going there. Really good stuff there as Jeff gets a chance to talk to him. We're going to go live here and hear this. Can we hear this?
My middle school coach Tim Cook told him that just like when I got some trouble, like I used to do some bad things, some crazy things. I was a child back then, but like I used to do some things.
Let me know when are we live? Okay.
I just used to do some things to get in trouble. Then, like Coach Parks came, man, he was telling me all about football.
We'll get Jeff Sintel
and,
back
like,
here in
what
just
he
a moment,
expected out of me.
as he's got Trayvon Walker ready to go. Listen, this is all live video. We're all, we got multiple locations. This is not as easy as we make it look here. So Jeff's in Upson Lee. I'm here in Atlanta as a part of our Dog Nation special with the Trayvon Walker announcement. So Jeff's got Walker ready to go, and we'll kind of jump back in there and get him. Do they know that we're ready for them? Do they know that we're ready to do that? Can we take it live here right now? All right, let's go back here live.
When he was at Alabama, that was the first coach I met. I didn't meet Coach Saban first. I met Coach Smart first. So.
Hey, Andrew, I'm just going to wait on you to point at me when we go live. What will Trayvon Walker be as a committed recruit? Are you going to be a little Nolan or more Trayvon? What's your style going to be like?
I won't be the little Nolan. I'll be the big Nolan.
The big Nolan, but you're going to be on guys?
Oh, yeah, of course. I'm going to be on them left and right. I mean, I gotta try to get some more of the top prospects in. So.
All right, guys, DawgNation.com, Facebook Live here with the man of the day, Trayvon Walker. I mean, first of all, let me give you the mic, man. What are you going to be like as a committed recruit to the University of Georgia?
I'm going to try my best to get some of the top recruits that are already committed in, to flip. So, for example, Owen, I'm going to try my best to get Owen to flip. Man, Owen been talking for a long time, and I'm just going to try to get him and some more players to flip.
So your decision, backing things up, everybody knows that he committed to Georgia. A little bit of the inside story here. You've been silently committed to Georgia for how long?
Well, for a couple weeks now, about close to a month or so.
You were silently committed after Texas or right before Texas?
Right before Texas.
Right before Texas. And what did the coaches react? How did the Georgia coaches react to your decision?
They were very excited. And when I first got on the phone with Coach Scott, when I told him, he was like, man, let's go on and make this thing public. But he wasn't pressuring me to anything. He was just like, man, I'm ready to make this thing public, get some more guys in here. So then it's going to be pretty big for me. We got the reveal coming up, so I know some good players going to be in there. So I'm gonna be down there trying to get some of those guys.
Who you want? Who's your short list of guys you got to get? Maybe we know Owen's out there, but who are the guys that are kind of uncommitted that you're really going to work on?
Andrew Booth. We've been talking about some young guys, but he's committed. Legend, 2020 guys. We've been looking, me and Nolan been talking about some 2020 guys. And mainly we got to look at some more D tackles. We just got we got a D tackle commit. A week ago, then we got Warren. Man, Warren was my roommate in Texas, so we both knew. I had told him about it, my decision, and he told me about his. He was silent committed also. And then I'm going to get us some more guys.
How many more silents do you think are out there?
Me personally, I think it's a lot. I think they're just waiting to see what kind of season, how the season starts off. That's what a lot of recruits do, to see how their season start off. But I think it's a good bit out there.
4?
It could be somewhere around that.
So why Georgia and why now? Two-part question. Why was it Georgia for you, and why did you want to do it now?
Georgia, I know if I go to Georgia and football was to be wiped out of my career, I know I'll be happy at Georgia, and I want to come back and give back to my community. I'm right 2 hours away. I can come back and I want to start my own business or something here in Georgia. And then
So, Mr. Walker, you will not enroll early. You're going to chase a third straight state basketball championship. They've won 63 in a row, guys. Do you plan to take other visits? Will you take other officials? What will that look like for you?
Right now, I'm not taking any other visits. As of now, I'm 100% committed. I'm going to be 100% committed. It has to be like a major, drastic change, but I doubt that will happen with Coach Smart signing a new contract, so I doubt that will happen.
How, lots of people were wondering about Trey Scott's effectiveness as a recruiter. I think you put some shine on his resume a little bit with this decision. How do you feel about maybe those folks out there that wonder, can Trey Scott recruit? We know he can coach the position. What's your opinion about Trey Scott as a recruiter?
Coach Scott, he's a great recruiter. He's one of those guys that stayed on me. He was always down at my school. When he came to visit me, like if he couldn't visit me, he got on the phone with one of my coaches. Like if it was a dead period, he was talking to my coaches, things like that. He's a great recruit. People may think just because he wasn't getting like recruits in like a while back, that doesn't mean nothing. We got some things coming.
When did you know? When did it spark in your head, feeling in your gut? When did you know? And what caused that?
And one day I was just thinking, I sent one of the coaches had sent me like a checklist of like what to look for in the college, and I was just looking and thinking and all the boxes, and I check out the boxes for each school, and Georgia just filled in the most, and I just know I feel comfortable there, and I'll be playing with some dogs, like some true savages. That's what I really want to go in and win a natty.
Who was number 2, and was it even close?
It was real tight with South Carolina and Clemson. Because South Carolina made a late push, and Clemson been there. Coach Bates, like I had a tremendous relationship with Coach Bates, if not one of the top relationships. But those were the top, like neck and neck for 2.
So Trayvon, you told me that you're about 6'6", 6'5 and a half, 275 right now. What's the position fit for you? What do you want to do? What do you feel comfortable with? And what does Georgia say they want you to play?
I'll play whatever. I just want to get on the field. But Georgia, they talking about moving me at a 5. Like I'll be mainly at defensive end, but like on 3rd and long, I can move into inside 3 technique a little bit to get a little faster pass rush in. Like you'll have Nolan down at end. He'll already be down at end, and you'll bring another outside linebacker down, and then we'll have a lot of speed coming off. And then,
what do you hope to accomplish in your 3 or 4 years at the University of Georgia? What are your goals right now? We'll come back and look at this in about 3 or 4 years. What are your goals as a Georgia Bulldog?
First of all, I would like to get my education, graduate. And then second of all, my main thing, I would love to win a national championship. Like I'm a person that coming up, I won 2 rec league championships in basketball, 2 middle school championships in basketball, and 2 high school state championships in basketball. So I just been like winning my whole life. I kind of know what it feels like to lose, but I don't want to lose. I want to go in ready to win a natty.
So the last question, and probably the most important question, I don't know how many people got to see his commitment video or decision video, but it was really a tribute to Coach Tommy Parks, former Upson Lee head coach, suffered a stroke, working his way back. He's getting Tommy strong right now. Can you just put into your own words what that man has meant to you and why he belonged in a starring role in your commitment video?
He meant a lot to me. He basically got me into like what I am now. I wouldn't say he started me off into what I am now, but he got me introduced to a lot of coaches. Like the first coach I ever met, I went down to Alabama camp and met Coach Smart. I didn't meet Coach Saban first. I met Coach Smart first. So once I met Coach Smart, that bond never like faded. So man, on the way home, David was in the car too, and we was just talking. Coach Parks was telling me like that Coach Smart, he said he bet some money that Coach Smart was going to go to Georgia because that was when the rumor was going around that he would be leaving because he had some head coaching jobs. And then ever since then, Coach Parks, he's been an idol ever since he got here. He got me on the right path. I used to get in a little trouble. I haven't been a troublemaker. I wasn't the perfect kid growing up. But when they came in my 8th grade year, I got in just a little bit of trouble, not too much. He got me on the right path, and I've been okay ever since.
Trayvon Walker, I thought of one more question. You talked about checklist and all the reasons when Georgia checked all the boxes. Can you put your finger on maybe the biggest reason in your mind why it was Georgia? What would that answer be for you?
Just for the simple fact I'm real close to home. That like being close to home wouldn't have made a huge factor, but it's kind of a big deal for like a mom that's like mine. My mom wants to get to me like real fast if she has to, but then I know I can come back like I said earlier. Without football, I know I'll be happy here at the University of Georgia. All
right, guys. Jeff Sintel here with Trayvon Walker. You got a message for anybody out there in DawgNation? What are you going to tell those folks?
Go Dogs.
Trayvon Walker, 5-star, nation's number 2 defensive tackle, moved up to number 1 player in Georgia, number 7 player overall. Things happening for Georgia right now. His decision moves Georgia up from number 9 in the country to number 4 in the country. Big things are likely on the way following Trayvon Walker out of Upson Lee High School. Back to you guys in the studio.
Jeff Sintel, outstanding work there, and Trayvon Walker, and the comment section is just blowing up over Trayvon Walker. Tommy Odom says that's a fine young man right there, and it really is. Georgia has got a long-time SID by the name of Claude Felton, and obviously when you're the sports information director, you're looking to sort of craft a message, and it's important to get the right message out, and I don't know that if the SID staff at Georgia had written a message for Trayvon Walker about what his goals are over the course of his time at UGA, they could have worked out any better than what Walker said there. He wanted to do 2 things. He wants to get his degree. He wants to win a national championship. How could you not just love that right there from Trayvon Walker? Al Chandler also mentioning that Walker's the kind of player that Georgia's not going to be able to lose if they've got guys like that. And, I find myself kind of thinking some of the same kind of stuff that, when you're recruiting at a super high level, you just get to be a little pickier. You get to be a little more choosy about who it is that you bring in. You can be, you don't have to be desperate for athletic players. You can be among the athletic players deciding who also sort of fits the mold of what you're looking for from a leadership standpoint, what you're looking for in terms of having a good head on your shoulders. And obviously I don't know Trayvon Walker personally, but when you spend, some intimate time with him right there, the way that Jeff Sintel did, asking him a lot of wide-ranging questions about his college career, when Walker speaks as freely and fluently as he does, how could you not come away impressed? I mean, I'm incredibly impressed with what Trayvon Walker has to say there. We're going to get Jeff Sintel ourselves here coming up in just a moment. We'll find out what Jeff has to say about all this. I know he's probably going to talk to Trayvon a little bit more and get some more behind-the-scenes stuff that he'll be able to tell us about. A few more notes here that I want to get to you here on what Trayvon Walker had to say there a moment ago here in this DawgNation Recruiting Special presented by Kroger. First of all, he does tell Jeff Sintel what I talked about before, that our graphic, if you want to go back to last football season, you got Trayvon Walker at about 240 pounds. But as of now, Walker's up to about 275. Now, does that weight fluctuate a bit, over the course of one more basketball season, which Walker says he wants to play? Maybe it does, but kind of interesting there that Walker on his own's already gained about, 25, 30 pounds, depending on which scale you believe and which website you take a look at there. Walker kind of already putting on some weight there in that regard. He does answer a question that had been asked in the comment section earlier, that Trayvon Walker for now does not plan on being an early enrollee. He wants to go back and do one more basketball season. Upson Lee team that at one point in time won 50 straight games. I think they may still have an undefeated streak of about 50 games or so. So that's obviously important to Trayvon Walker. He wants to keep that up. Honestly, I've said before, from a perspective of a fan, a guy like that who's playing multiple sports, keeping himself in shape, him being an early enrollee is not as important to me as some of these other guys that may just be sitting around playing Fortnite the entire time. But obviously, Georgia fans would like for a guy like that who could be in line for some early playing time in 2019, to be an early enrollee if possible. But obviously, basketball is important to him. We understand why that is. It was interesting, and maybe the most interesting thing that Trayvon Walker had to say on the subject of taking visits. Trayvon Walker, you heard there, said does not plan on taking any more visits, plans on taking no more officials. He said he was 100% committed to Georgia. You can go back and watch the interview for yourself. 100% committed to Georgia. Something drastic would have to change for his opinion on Georgia to change there. That's a pretty bold statement from Trayvon Walker in terms of the level of commitment he's showing to UGA. Obviously, one of the things that Kirby talked about for the class of 2017 was players not taking visits helped Georgia spend time recruiting players for that given class and looking ahead to the class of 2018 and even some cases the class of 2019. Obviously, if a player wants to take his visits, you sort of go with him on that ride, and hopefully you're the winner when it's all said and done. But it's good news when a player doesn't want to. And for now, anyway, it appears that Trayvon Walker doesn't want to take any visits. So that's a very interesting statement to come from Walker a moment ago. You also heard Trayvon Walker give some real credit to Georgia defensive line coach Trey Scott, the guy that has been in battle is probably too strong of a word, but certainly in the spotlight a bit. Given Georgia's high-profile misses at Trayvon Walker's position. Well, Trayvon Walker gives some of the credit for why he ends up at Georgia over to Trey Scott there. Had some really good things to say there in that regard. Really interesting stuff from Trayvon Walker. You see there on your screen, he joined us a moment ago with a great interview conducted by Jeff Sintel. Also, Trayvon was very open about some of the players he's going to be recruiting against or recruiting for and trying to bring to the University of Georgia. So a lot of really interesting stuff from Trayvon Walker. And obviously, we'll take a lot more of your comments on this here as well. I will remind you this Dog Nation recruiting special, as we present Trayvon Walker's announcement to you live, is brought to you by Kroger. And right now, Kroger invites you to download the Kroger app. You're going to get $5 off your purchase of $50 or more when you do at your local Atlanta Kroger, so make sure you check that out. Over in the comment section, John William Adams, with a bit of a reference to Doc Brown in the in the Back to the Future movie, says, "Great Scott, he did it." Obviously, also a play on Trey Scott's name. Al Chandler says that this is a big hit to Saban. Yeah, one of the things that Nick Saban has done is make his bones, make his name for himself in the SEC by elite defensive line recruiting, and now that's what Georgia's doing here as well. Tram Dickerson L says, if we flip Owen Popo, it's going to be like adding Bookie Cousins to the Golden State Warriors. That's pretty good analogy by Tram on that one. I really like that. Jeff Terry says, Kirby's keeping those studs in state. Future so bright, I got to wear shades. It also kind of reminds me, do y'all remember when I used to have the audio of this, and I've lost it. Just, sometimes things just sort of disappear off my computer. But do y'all remember when D'Angelo Gibbs committed to Georgia at the Under Armour All-American game back in, I guess it would have been, right at the beginning of January there, 2 years ago. And his mom had the great line about keeping them dogs at home, baby. That was D'Angelo Gibbs' mom's line when D'Angelo chose to go to UGA, and I just have always sort of loved that, and I think about that a lot of the times. We got Jeff ready to go here, so we got Jeff Sintel ready to go. I'll say hello to him, but let me just finish my point here really quickly. I think about Gibbs' mom a lot when these in-state guys choose to stay a part of the Georgia program, because another example of keeping them dogs at home. All right, a guy that has been away from home tonight for us is our Jeff Sintel. He's our Dog Nation recruiting insider, and here on this Dog Nation recruiting special presented by Kroger, Jeff joins us live from Upson Lee High School. We saw him a moment ago speak to Trayvon Walker. Jeff, give us the sights and sounds from your perspective about being in the room when Walker made his announcement. What could we not see from our vantage point here on video?
Well, I think the main thing, guys, and congratulations, Dog Nation. That is now 4 5-stars in the class of 2019. You add them to the 18 from some service on the roster. And now, if all those guys do matriculate to Georgia, that will be 22 5-stars on the roster. Just those guys. I think there's a tweet going around from a Florida Gators reporter right now on social media that I thought was eye-opening. There are currently 2 total 5-stars on the Florida roster, which is a nice little point of contention. But the thing with Trayvon Walker that really moved me is he chose with his decision video, and it takes some audio-video difficulties to get it up, but what he did there was he showed a commitment to a leader in his life, and that was Tommy Parks. If everybody doesn't know the story about Tommy Parks, former Upson Lee coach, goes back a long way with Kirby Smart, actually. He suffered a stroke, and he's working his way back. There's a dedicated effort on social media. The community has rallied around Coach Parks, but he framed taking a Georgia hat and Georgia gear to Coach Parks' house and telling him he was going to go to Georgia, just as a gesture and a tribute to that gentleman who basically saw him kind of veering a little bit, being a knuckleheaded kid in the 8th grade, and put him on the right path to being something in his life. Brandon, I remember a conversation. What goes through my mind today, you've got people hooting and hollering and barking. I remember I had a conversation when I was down here to cover David Marshall's recruitment. And I went and spoke to David. I'm like looking at the practice field, and I see Trayvon Walker already. And right away, it's clear to me that he is going to be a big-time SEC prospect. I have a conversation with a member of his family, and it's one of those where I want to just tuck away a little bit in my back pocket. And the subject of Georgia came up, and basically the simple summary of that story was if Georgia recruited him the right way, they felt that Trayvon Walker was going to end up at Georgia Bulldog. Some nice little insidery stuff. He's been committed to Georgia for about 3 weeks as a silent commitment. He committed right before he went to Texas for the Nike opening. Interesting little subplot here is obviously he was a silent commitment, and Trayvon Walker tells me, I'm sure everybody saw the interview. I just want to kind of bring that back into focus for those who maybe are just jumping on the feed right now. He said the number was right around 4 other silent commitments for Georgia. And for everybody that's keeping track, Georgia moves from number 9 to number 4 nationally with their 4th five-star in the class of 2019. No other program in the country has more than 2, and that is just LSU and Oklahoma with 2. So lots to talk about here with Trayvon Walker. Brandon, hit me with what you got.
I think it's really interesting that Walker has already gained 20 pounds from where he ended his basketball season. I think at that time he may have been around 255 or so. He told you he's up to about 275 pounds. It sounds like he's comfortable in either that 3 technique or the 5 technique. What does Georgia want him to weigh as a freshman in 2019?
I think they just want him to be fit and healthy. He's not going to come in until June of next year, Brandon. He wants to play another basketball season. Upson Lee has won 63 straight basketball games with him as a key man in the middle. Just a really nice kid. Remember, he is in the elite level as a high school athlete in football. He's in basketball, double-doubles machine, an integral part of the Upson Lee Knights basketball program, which has won two straight state titles. He was in the top 10 in the state this year in the shot put. He holds the shot put record at Upson Lee High School. So versatile and so athletic now, just beginning to embrace the weight room. His head coach here at Upson Lee tells me that they're going to feature him a lot at linebacker this year because he can play that. Also a very effective tight end for Upson Lee. You're just getting a massive size athlete who can do a lot of things, could definitely play an outside 5 technique, play out on the edges for Georgia in the SEC. He's very hungry. He wants to get that degree. He likes the fit of Georgia being close to home. Actually, he told me he couldn't tell for sure. He couldn't say for certain who was number 2 between South Carolina or Clemson in the number runner-up spot. His father said, I guess the only thing that matters here is who's number 1. His commitment video there were some scenes that were shot in Athens. He was doing some push-ups on campus, and when he committed to Georgia, there's a scene that involves Justin Fields. It involves his former basketball teammate, Ty Fagan, as well. Just a neat little story that he used to tribute and kind of pay homage to his former high school coach at Upson Lee with his decision video. And Brandon, another thing, for all those flat-billed scientists out there, it looks like that still is undefeated. The most curvature, and we're going to add that to the DawgNation daily lexicon here, the most curvature and the side position for Georgia still look to be in the Bulldogs' favor prior to the decision. So it is a very happy day for DawgNation. That's the 4th 5-star recruit. Georgia once again has a top 4 recruiting class in the country, and I wouldn't expect that rating to dip at any time. Guys he wants to stalk and go after, I'll repeat what he said in our live interview. The name Owen Papo comes up, but the name Andrew Booth also comes up as well. That's somebody that the Bulldogs are still going to go after regardless. And Trayvon Walker will be at the reveal this weekend working on guys. And he said you guys should consider him to be an active recruiter in the Nolan Smith mold. He said to think of him as a bigger Nolan Smith on the recruiting trail working for Georgia to play with some great guys going forward in his career.
Well, that's a really strong statement, Jeff. That's really interesting. I also want to backtrack a bit on the notion that he's going to be a summer enrollee for 2019. I've told you before on DawgNation Daily that I don't think the Georgia fans should be too bothered by that. This is a guy that plays, 3 sports there for Upson Lee, very good at basketball. He also does some field events there as well. He's going to stay in shape, but is this the kind of thing that he would at any point in time reconsider and maybe say, you know what, to be a player as a freshman on the defensive line at Georgia in that rotation, maybe being a early enrollee does help me here. Is this a settled issue for him, or is this the kind of thing that you think he might still be open to considering?
Well, I remember David Marshall did not come in early. I remember Tyler Clark did not come in early, and they made impacts for Georgia. This is a higher ceiling prospect than both of those guys coming into Georgia. You do make a great point there, Brandon. He's going to work out. He's going to be a part of the basketball team. His cardiovascular will be great. And I also think that Mr. Walker is the type of player. You saw in one of the stories I put up in DawgNation this week, Trayvon Walker is a defensive tackle prospect for Georgia. Georgia is set to graduate or exhaust the eligibility of 8 defensive linemen over the next 2 years, including 5 defensive tackle-type prospects. So when I look at Trayvon, I look at a guy, 2020, to me, looks to be the year where he's going to pin his ears back and really start wreaking havoc for the Bulldogs along the trenches in the SEC.
Let me do a couple quick issues here, Jeff, before we let you go. I thought it was a very strong statement from Walker that right now he doesn't plan on taking any visits. He said to you a moment ago that it'd have to be essentially some sort of major change in Georgia for any change to be brought about in him. If you're a UGA fan, that's got to be music to your ears, doesn't it?
Yeah, and he's going to be one of those guys in the Dominic Blaylock, Bill Norton mold, one of those DawgNation Daily approved golden boss type recruits. one of those that has blinders on, and that guy's going straight between the hedges in Athens, Georgia. Trayvon Walker, a huge pickup for the University of Georgia. I'm going to say this bluntly. We have our list. Everybody out there in the recruiting business has their list. When you combine Trayvon Walker's talent level, his upside, his future ceiling, and how important the defensive tackle position was for the class of 2019 at Georgia, how it helps the resume for Trey Scott going forward, I think the Bulldogs tonight have checked off their biggest remaining uncommitted target for the class of 2019. Yeah. Of course, all those greedy DawgNation guys led by fan club member Brandon Adams, they'll want Tyreek Stevenson, they'll want Lewis Seen, they'll want guys like Rian Davis, they'll want guys like John Emery Jr. or Ty Davis or Trey Sanders or Noah Kane. You'll perhaps want to add another impact linebacker like Nakobe Dean as an inside linebacker. You'll think about the names Andrew Booth. You'll think about other names. I personally feel that the biggest remaining got-to-get target for Georgia in 2019, for a variety of reasons, just got checked off tonight, and that is the fourth five-star in this class, and Georgia are going to chase a couple of more. But I do think even guys like Clay Webb, Nakobe Dean, Tyreek Stevenson, those guys are very important to the remainder of the class, and you'll see those lists come out accordingly. But I do think the worst for Trayvon Walker, for a variety of reasons, made tonight very big for the future of Georgia football.
Let me finish with this, Jeff. I know, as you mentioned a moment ago, people are just joining us. Maybe they didn't see the Trayvon Walker interview that you conducted a few minutes ago. Can we reset some of the names that he mentioned? You talked about Owen Popo and Andrew Booth. That's two names that he's kind of going after right now. I believe I also heard him mention Legend Cavasso's name. Kind of interesting in the case of Popo and Cavassos, they're committed other places. Booth is thought to be, in some circles, a lean elsewhere. Certainly, Trayvon Walker, no respecter of previous agreements when it comes to some of the players he's going after, right?
Yeah, Brandon, I think there's a sense of confidence with the Georgia program. They didn't back off of guys like Cade Mays when they were committed. They didn't back off guys like Justin Fields or Brenton Cox when they were committed. And if you ask the Bulldogs, they do not look down the list about who else is available. They look up the list and to see who they can add. Andrew Booth is one of those guys to very, very much pay close attention to. And this weekend is going to be pretty big for the Bulldogs with their reveal event. They'll have a camp on Friday. They will have a neat little event, world premiere, you want to call it, whatever. Going to have a lot of big names on there. A lot of big names are on the DawgNation.com message board forum as well. And Brandon, it's pretty interesting. As we're conducting this interview, they're replaying his commitment decision video, and there's a part where they hand some Georgia paraphernalia back and forth, and in the background is Sanford Stadium. Justin Fields is giving Trayvon Walker a big hug. You cut to a scene with Walker doing some push-ups, and then him with his former coach Tommy Parks. They're walking off away from the Tate Center. Very, very interesting decision commitment video that mattered a lot to Trayvon Walker and the Upton Lee High School family.
Jeff, I say this with all sincerity. Your coverage of this event has been outstanding. You and our buddy Andrew Astor are on the scene there. We really appreciate everything you all have done from Upton Lee. We couldn't be there. You brought us the sights and sounds, including an outstanding interview with with Trayvon Walker a moment ago, and it's been nice to have you also share some of your thoughts on this as well. I know you've got a lot more coming at DawgNation.com on this. As you mentioned a moment ago, you've got a great thread up at the forum at forum.DawgNation.com where you're bringing a lot of intel on visitors this upcoming weekend, including Trayvon Walker, for the big West End Zone reveal for these recruits, the brand new locker room, the brand new recruiting facility. Jeff, we just appreciate you bringing it. The season is here. Recruiting has got into full swing here. It is all the way 100 miles an hour between now and February. At least that's the sense that I'm getting here. And, Jeff, we can't wait to follow with you every single day.
Brandon, I got 2 questions for you. One of them is easy. How fired up are you right now, sir?
Oh, I'm feeling very good. This is a name that you know that I've talked to you about a lot, both on and off the air. To have this name officially go up on the board here, that's a pretty good trophy to put on the wall, if you don't mind me saying so.
Well, and I'm going to pull a Brandon on you, man. I want to know right now, you slide out Trayvon Walker from the top spot in the Brandon Adams Most Wanted Gotta Get Dogs for 2019. And I want to know who moves up to number 1 now, Brandon, on your list. Who is the number 1 remaining target for Georgia in 2019 to you?
That's a good question. Listen, I mean, I had somebody in the comment section a moment ago say we need to move off of Andrew Booth. He says he's gone, and maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But obviously, when it comes to that elite player, I'd love to find some way for Georgia to get back involved there. I'd mentioned Kobe Dean here a bit. I think that's a player of need for UGA. I start thinking a bit about running backs, although they're probably no higher than 3rd for me on this list. It's kind of fun to sort of move on to the next guy here. Maybe Dean more realistic at the moment than Booth would be. But obviously in my wish list, with anything being a possibility, Andrew Booth would be the name that I'd go to there.
I think the position you got right on dead on about the position. I think defensive back, an elite defensive back, whether that might be a Tyreek Stevenson or a Lewis Seen or even an Andrew Booth, Kyer Elam, names like that are names for the fans to think about. And of course, I want to mention another name, Ryan Trouble Davis.
Yeah,
seems like he's been a guy that's had Georgia as his leader for so long, and it's felt very comfortable for Georgia as his leader for so long that he kind of gets pushed to the wayside. But this is a tremendous top 5 linebacker for Georgia in 2019. But the name I'm going to give you, Brandon, is I think the guy I would elevate now into the number 1 slot for Georgia is the junior college defensive end outside linebacker, Jermaine Johnson, 6'6", about 250 pounds. You see flashes of him a little bit right now on the Last Chance U program, which is featuring Independence Community College out of Kansas. To me, this is a very rare talent. I probably wouldn't argue with a fella that wonders if Georgia was able to bring him in, how much he would compare to the type of player that Lorenzo Carter was, athletically at least, when he was at his best days as a Georgia Bulldog.
Yeah, that's a great name, Jeff. That's one of those guys, and the comment section's already lighting up on Johnson here, so that's a terrific name to bring up. All right, you be careful coming back from Thomaston there. We'll look forward to catching up with you soon. We're going to read every word that you write about your experiences here. I know you've got a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that you'll be providing there for that, and we'll get ready for this weekend and a major recruiting event going down. Jeff, it's fun to talk to you, and we appreciate you bringing the coverage to us there from Upson Lee High School.
Hey, guys, it's another 5-star night for the Georgia Bulldogs. You enjoy yourself out there.
Well said, Jeff Sintel. Another 5-star night indeed. 5-star coverage from Jeff Sintel. Also, a big thank you to Andrew Astleford, who has done a great job doing a lot of things I don't know that he's done before, but he really did it well for us here tonight. And, of course, Michael Carvel running the show from the other side of the glass over here for me. That is a big help to make all this possible. But, of course, the biggest thank you of all goes to Kroger, because we can't even do any of this stuff if Kroger doesn't make it possible for us. So thank you to Kroger. And, by the way, you see Upson Lee High School there. School getting ready to start back there at Upson Lee. School getting ready to start back. My son's going to the 1st grade. We're all thinking about back-to-school shopping. And when we think about back-to-school shopping around here, we think about Kroger. It's your back-to-school central. It's your headquarters, whether it be notebooks, glue, pens, pencils. Pretty much everything in between you can find at your local Atlanta Kroger. So make sure you check that out and enjoy the back-to-school time, which is probably better news for you than it is for your kids. The house will look quieter during the daytime, maybe. Nothing wrong with that. All right, so I'm going to get ready to say goodbye here. Thanks to all of you for being a part of what has been a lot of fun here tonight as Georgia adds another 5-star commit for the class of 2019 in Trayvon Walker. For those of you that listen or watch the morning show, DawgNation Daily, as I told you today, a little bit of a hiatus for us, a couple more final vacation days for me, and effort to get ready for the 2019 season. So I'm gone tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday, but back again at our normal time on Monday at 10 a.m. We'll have a lot to talk about then as practice gets going for Georgia here next week, and we'll react to the recruiting event. We're going to be very busy starting next week on DawgNation Daily. So y'all, thank you for allowing me to take a couple vacation days here for the next couple of days. We'll obviously bask in the glow of the good news here tonight. Make sure you read Jeff at DawgNation.com. Plenty more coming from Mike Griffith and Chip Towers on Georgia practice, which is only a couple days away. It's Fan Day 2 Saturdays from now there at UGA. So listen, y'all, it is here. Season's ready to go. We're ready to cover it. We're glad you're with us. DawgNation will sign off for tonight, but we'll see you real soon. And thanks so much for being with us.